With regard to Afghanistan, the simple explanation is stupidity and incompetence. That sounds right to me. That's what I saw. I don't to say that there was a deep state plot to actually leave the weapons behind intentionally so you could arm the Taliban so they could be power against, I don't know whom, Iran. I mean, you can kind of spin a whole theory out of it. Why do you take the troops out before the civilians? Why do you take the troops out at all before you get the weapons out? You know, not approximately $90 billion, 90 billion Black Hawk helicopters, rocket propelled grenades, machine guns, the M4, which we have the popular rifle in the United States is the AR-15. The M4 is the fully automatic, military version of that, some modified for Special Operations Command. If you go back to about 1964, I could be off by a year, but I think it's 1964. There's a classic black and white film called 7 Days in May, with two of my favorite actors, Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. They play the lead roles, but it's got a great cast. But it's basically about a military coup in America where the commander, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, organizes his top officers. They agree that they're going to take over communications channels and announce that they no longer take orders from the President of the United States, who is in effect rendered powerless because of this military coup, and they've got secret operations going on. It's a great movie, really recommend it. Well, in philosophy and analysis, there's something called Occam's razor, and it goes back to the Middle Ages, but the idea basically is if you have a simple explanation for something and a really complicated, convoluted explanation, odds are the simple explanation is correct. When you get into multiple factors, it's not just a little more complicated, it's immensely more complex, and the idea that you can actually pull it off or that it wouldn't come to light or whatever is highly improbable. So always keep digging, keep asking questions, but go with the simple explanation when you can. With regard to Afghanistan, the simple explanation is stupidity and incompetence. That sounds right to me. That's what I saw. I don't to say that there was a deep state plot to actually leave the weapons behind intentionally so you could arm the Taliban so they could be power against, I don't know whom, Iran. I mean, you can kind of spin a whole theory out of it. Things like that happen, but not with this crowd. They're not bright enough to actually do something like that. Blinken is a lightweight. No one's worse than our national security advisor, who, again, unseasoned. These are people that they have all the degrees. Okay, so they went to Harvard, they went to Yale, they went to Stanford, they were Rhodes Scholars, whatever. But it just shows you how little those credentials mean when you see how weak they are in the performance of their duties. One of the things I noticed, because I do think about this a lot, is they elevate process over substance. Now, substance is what counts. You do need some process. You need some interagency coordination. It's always good to get contrary views in the room. Don't shoot from the hip. That's all fine. But they take process to the point where it becomes the substance, as far as they're concerned, as long as the right interagency memos were circulated and everybody, in the intelligence and military community, they use the word equities. Everyone has equities. It means you have a voice in the process. As long as all the equities were taken into account, everybody signed the memo, everybody got the memo, everyone went to the meeting, etc., then it must be okay. But they had all these people like Fiona Hill and George Kent and the famous Vindman, or as he would say, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman to you. He was, anytime a military officer throws his rank out, he's a weakling, because the real heroes don't do that. I mean, I know a lot of Navy SEALs, I know a lot of generals. They don't throw their rank around. I saw a photograph of Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower recently in military uniform, and he had one little service medal, this one. Okay, now I'm sure he earned 50. I have no doubt about that. But he wore one. It meant something to him. It signified some degree of heroism or strategic ability or whatever. Millie, my father fought in the Marine Corps in the Pacific in World War II, and by the way, he earned a medal that was a Presidential Unit Citation twice for Peleliu and Okinawa, equivalent to the Navy Cross, which is higher than any award, one notch below the Congressional Medal of Honor, higher than anything Millie has. But Millie's got, if he knows, rows and rows and rows and rows of these colored battle ribbons or whatever. My father used to call that fruit salad. Whenever he saw a general wearing that, he's got fruit salad on his chest. But that's that's what we're dealing with. The idea that you're all working together like sheep running over a cliff never seems to occur to them. The fact that your ideas are moronic, have immensely negative consequences, doesn't seem to trouble them as long as the process went along okay. Trump was quite the opposite. Trump, let's look at Ukraine. So Obama never sent weapons to Ukraine, to basically the government in Kiev. He sent canned goods, what they call MREs, meals ready to eat. It's a military ration. You open the top and it's good to go. It's got some protein or whatever, and blankets. Okay, thank you. Trump actually sent weapons, a lot of weapons, like anti-tank weapons, things that could take out Russian tanks, etc. And yet somehow Trump was branded as the guy who wasn't supporting Ukraine. He was actually impeached for it, and Obama is applauded. Well, why was that? Well, actually, I watched the first, with Trump, you have to distinguish between first impeachment and second impeachment. They were both, unconstitutional farces, but they happened. I watched the first impeachment hearings very closely. I couldn't in the second because there were no hearings, but that's a separate story. So they've got the credentials, they've got the process, but they don't pay attention to the substance. But what happened in Afghanistan, I don't really want to belabor it because I think most of our listeners have followed the story and are probably very well aware of it. But, just to say the obvious points, if you're and it's not about the withdrawal. That's a fair debate. Okay, so some Americans, a lot of people want to think, just get out of Afghanistan. 20 years is enough. Others said, hey, we got it down to 2,500 troops. We haven't had any casualties in 18 months. We're supporting the Afghan regular forces with air power and intelligence and drones, etc. We got a lid on it. It's not that it was all good, but it was getting to be a low cost presence for a big strategic footprint. Now, that was the case for staying there. If you want to get out, that's okay. That's a fair debate. I'm open to both sides of that one, but it's how you get out. That's what was not just botched. That's an understatement. All this because of this military coup, and they've got secret operations going on. It's a great movie. Really recommend it. If you have a simple explanation for something and a really complicated, convoluted explanation, the simple explanation is stupidity and incompetence. That sounds right to me. That's what I saw. But it just shows you how little those credentials mean when you see how weak they are in the performance of their duties.